Hello, and welcome to the Libri Labra book club. Today, we're going to be talking about Sky Full of Elephants by Cebo Campbell. And I do want to say that the reason this book was even on my radar is because I follow a content creator named Gina with a J. I follow her on Instagram mostly, but she does also have a YouTube that doesn't have a ton of content on it. So I would say go find her on either Instagram or TikTok. Um, but yeah, the description sounded fascinating, and I will talk a little bit more about it in a second. But if you ever want to join us on camera for our book club discussions, you can do that by becoming a book club VIP member at patreon.com/Libri Labra. And there's a few different perks. You get sometimes behind the scenes like photos or footage. You get to be part of a Facebook group where we talk about some of the media that we're consuming. You also get a custom bookmark and priority comments back on YouTube, commenting and stuff like that. So if you have not read this, definitely recommend that you go and do that. We will be briefly talking about our initial thoughts and then jumping into spoiler territory. So this was my pick, and I kind of mentioned why I decided to go with it, and to tell you a little bit about the summary. One day, all the white people in the world kind of woke up and decided to walk into the oceans, like bodies of water, and just kind of unalive themselves. And the book is mostly about like what happens to the people who are remaining and how they are in community with each other and basically navigate the world with all the white people missing. And so it's definitely a book that's probably going to stay with me for a long time. And I think it's given me a ton to think about. And I almost wish that I had more time to kind of sit with all of it, because I don't think I gave myself enough time to do that. But those are my initial thoughts. I am joined today by my husband, John, aka BookTube Hubby, and Tom, Book Club VIP member. So, initial thoughts.
I was just curious going in, but when you told me that was the premise, I was like, I wanted to read it, and I very much like. I'm in. It was a great thought experiment.
How about you, Tom?
None, because this was the author and the book were unfamiliar to me, so unknown to me, I should say, before you had suggested it. So I went and just started reading.
Okay. I don't know how to even like best lead this discussion, but was there?
Are we in spoiler territory?
Yes, okay. We can jump into spoiler territory now. So, I guess, was there anything about the premise, or even like just reading through the book, that made you feel defensive, or
Mm-mm.
nothing?
No, I had emotional feedbacks I mean, her responses to people when it starts becoming clear that she was brainwashed by her family to think a specific way, and I was like, oh no. So I don't know. There was a lot of stuff in there. It's just I can't help but just shake my head at it. I mean, it's just I can't.
And when you say she, you're talking about, so the main character
His daughter.
was his daughter, right? So there's Charlie and there's Sydney, and Sydney is mixed race, and so her mom was one of the people that kind of walked into the ocean, but she was still there.
I was also there for your emotional response to when you found out what she did. We'll get there when we get there.
But same question to you, Tom.
Well, when you were talking about when they walked in the nearest body of water, of course, the wits on Reddit on GoDaddy. So what if you live in the desert? Well,
No, they did a lot of walking.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, yes, but no. I mean, yes.
they were blistering red by the
Yeah,
time they got there.
I get where you're going with this, but it's really not, what we're going for here. But no, I mean, I don't know. To me, it's like if you're in a domestic relationship, like boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, spouse, partner, etc. Um, if that was an abusive relationship, what would be the thing to do?
Get out.
Leave, right? Well, you can't do that, really, in this case. So, and again, reading the comments on Goodreads, and say, "Oh, it's genocide," which it is. Absolutely, it is. But I mean, is it the only way to achieve what they were achieving? I don't know. I am clearly not the demographic that this this is aimed at.
Right.
So.
And I think that's probably a little bit of what I struggled with too. Just maybe because of who I am, I just feel like I'm very, very empathetic. I'm just the type of person that feels like no one should have the power to eliminate anyone else. Regardless of how evil or terrible, I feel like there has to be another way. And maybe that's overly idealistic of me. Maybe I haven't suffered enough. I don't know. But to me, it feels like the answer is somehow love. Maybe we haven't figured out the combination yet or how to speak to people, but to me, in my heart, the answer is love. And so what the world needs is more love, not more violence, or you know what I mean? And so that was a little bit.
I mean, this was kind of a non-violent way to do it.
Well, I mean, I guess because they did it themselves. I don't know. I don't know how to lead the discussion.
Oh no.
Because I'm still just sitting with so
we
much
do
of
have
it.
to process a lot. It was a lot.
I think I don't want to immediately jump to the twist, but that was I mean, when I was listening to it, I gasped. I was like, oh, that's what happened. So I don't want to get there quite yet, but
do you want to find a guide somewhere to help guide you? Or?
You know what? Yeah, maybe. Okay. But I'm wondering if we should provide even more of a summary. Because it's told in third person, but it does go back and forth between Charlie's, following Charlie and following Sydney.
And every so often, the queen, I can't remember her name now.
Sarah.
So I have a question. Remember when they were in, I think it was Kenosha or where Charlie first meets Sydney.
Oh yeah, where he picks her up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they have that family. The kids rush down to the house, and Sadie's got the gun out, and she's ready to do the thing, and Charlie backs her off of that. That was the family that actually created that paradise in Georgia, right?
I didn't think so.
What? Okay, I'm curious now.
Because the guy introduces himself as, I think it was Hosea, and that's the name of the guy. That's the king in.
Was there time jumping in this? I didn't think there was, but just
I honestly, I hope there was, because no, in the sense that for them to do all that stuff, because clearly Charlie and Sydney met them after the event.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to have been within a year that they were in Alabama, was it?
Yeah, it was in Mobile.
Yeah,
Mobile, Alabama. Mm-hmm.
And then for them to do all that in a year, Seems a lot to me.
Driving from where was he to begin with?
He was in Chicago or someplace east. I
Hmm.
forget where.
Okay. Do they ever say how old Sydney is?
I gathered she was
Yeah.
a teenager.
Okay. Because for some reason she felt like she was in her mid-20s to me, and I don't know if I missed an
No,
age in there.
no,
All right.
I'm looking at that.
So, how do Charlie and Sydney's initial feelings towards each other reflect larger themes of family and identity in the novel? And then discuss their relationship dynamics and how these evolve over the course of their journey.
I imagine she's very guarded off at the start because she never
She
actually
never
knew
knew
him.
him,
She
right?
don't
She
know who
never
he
knew
is,
him.
and she was also taught very, very, very wrong way of thinking about people like him.
So, yeah, I agree that she had like all sorts of biases and uh, probably racist ideas. But at some point, she mentions how her mother never talked bad about him.
Right,
So,
right before she found out the truth.
so even though she hadn't seen him, you would think that if your mother never talked bad about your dad, that there wouldn't be that much animosity.
I don't think. Well, I mean, she wasn't there. He wasn't there. That's all she had to blame him for, really. But she didn't know why.
Sydney obviously starts the story just feeling upset about the event and also just navigating the world like she's better than everyone that was left that
Well,
was still there.
she had this underlying idea that she wasn't good enough to go with them,
Right.
and that's another thing that made me very sad too.
Well, in regards to how their dynamic changes over time, um, I feel like it was quite the uphill battle, but um, at some point she starts to accept that maybe the reality that she's been living is not necessarily accurate or
Right.
truth, and that she doesn't need to have
Yeah, she's
so
taking
many
things out on
walls
Charlie.
up.
It wasn't his fault.
None of it was his fault. That was like that whole thing was so messed up.
That was when you gasped, by the way. I was there for when you found out that uh, she saved her brother over Charlie, and you know, yeah, that response, like, ah. uh,
Yeah, that was difficult because I get why someone would do that, but at the same time, like I don't know. I think
dirty.
my justice sensitivity is too high. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're related to me or we're blood. Like if you're wrong, you're wrong. Like I would kind of die on that hill. Like I'm not gonna support you if you went out and murdered somebody. I'm not gonna support you if you're like lying to people. Like I can't. Like if you're wrong, you're wrong. Like it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how we're related. I kind of don't want to be related to you if you're doing all this bad stuff to people. Like
Right.
um. So yeah, that was. I don't. I mean, but at the same time, like, uh, romantic love is so different. It's so different than familiar love. To me, it's bigger. It's just I don't know. I mean, like obviously it's a story. It was written a specific way for a reason. But we are in spoiler territory. So Charlie spent the majority of his daughter's life, like pretty much his entire daughter's life, in jail, um, because her mother and the woman he loved, who also loved him, um, sided with her brother when her brother walked in on them and essentially started, like, what, him and his friends, right? Was there other people? I think there was other people involved.
Well, I think it was a party they were at or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and they were at her brother's place. I don't know, but
Yeah,
they
no
walked in on
idea.
them doing things, and everybody got upset and started beating the crap out of Charlie. And his brother pulled a gun and shot him. And in order to have her brother not go to jail, he went along with her brother's story. She went along with her brother's story.
The
So
brother's
sad.
story was that his sister was being raped, which just all that's horrible. Um, and it's the fact that he couldn't use her letter to defend himself in any way.
Yeah.
Like the way, like, racism blinds. I mean, I'm sure there's people that are just like blinded by it, and then people that are willingly ignoring the truth. But um, that's rough too.
Well,
I'm talking. Go ahead.
I think in the book it says something like, "Yes, the justice system works, but it doesn't work for you."
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
I mean, we see it time and time again.
Yep.
Um, it feels like all of it, all of the laws were just, they don't apply. They don't apply to white people. White people
Mm-hmm.
get away with stuff all the time. Um, did you, Tom, have anything to add about the relationship between Sydney and Charlie and how it kind of changed over time?
Well, I mean, it's kind of thing where I think that was one of the better parts of the book in the sense that she, of course, she didn't know him from Adam, and then as they go through this stuff, like when I think it was after the gun incident, like with the family, they are not named. I thought they had introduced themselves, so maybe not, but um, I just thought it was interesting. There was the husband, the wife, two sons, and a daughter, which I think is the makeup of um, Hosea's family. And Vivian is the name of the woman that I could not think of before. But no, like after when he hugs her, it's like, wow, I don't like this person, but this feels real nice, sort of a thing. The hug. So it's just that gradual acceptance of him, you know, especially after all the tales that she's told, you know. And to set that aside and say, well, like judging by your actions, yes, you care for me, you love me, but that's a lot too bigger hurdle than she should have had to make. But here we are.
Was there something you wanted
What
to?
was the thing? At some point, he used the machine on himself for a second.
Mm-hmm.
He came back all glowing and a different person.
Mm-hmm.
That, is that skipping steps?
In what sense?
Like I just use this thing and then character growth. Yay. Nah, and I guess the idea is that the king showed him, I guess grounded him, right? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think so, and kind of like um, let him tap into the universal consciousness that they
That he wanted him
wanted to
to,
have
right?
access to.
Right, and show them, okay, this is what we're going for. We may turn on this machine, and the consequences for others could be worse than they were. But this is what we're going for.
Let's see. says explore the significance of Charlie being a professor of electric and solar power systems at Howard University. How does this profession and its focus on sustainability and renewal metaphorically relate to the themes of rebuilding and transformation in the story?
Well, I think the theme for Charlie is that, and he says himself, he knows how to fix things.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like his relationship with his daughter, or the I'll call it a radio, but that they use to beam the signal out too. Plus, my guess is that he's one of the very few people of color in that particular line of work, so that's a pretty unique thing to have.
I mean, what the machine provided and what they wanted sounds great. Like, I feel like we should all have access to that as a reminder that literally we're all connected, like all of us. I don't know how we get that back, but I know there's been like plenty of times where John and I have talked about the impact of capitalism today, and how we should go back to bartering. And that's kind of what they were doing in Alabama, and providing electricity for free, like just like certain things that they were like, this is what we should all have access to.
The fact that we only plant male trees so they don't bear fruit out in the public. The fact that I understand the fruit gets messy, but we can harvest it, we can use it, we can do something with it. It doesn't have to be left on the ground. It's like, what are we doing? We're humans, man. Capitalism hurts.
A lot of people have forgotten their humanity, I feel like. And if you can't see the humanity in yourself, like how are you going to see it in other people? I don't know.
That's interesting. The Dunning-Kruger of empathy.
I mean, there are no ethical billionaires. And I know that kind of deviates from the question. But this question is making me think about the ending specifically, and I mean, I guess we can talk about things out of order. It doesn't have to be in a specific order. But John and I had briefly started talking about it, and I was like, let's cut it off so it can be part of the discussion.
Yeah.
But what was your interpretation of the ending, Tom?
Yeah, what happened?
Well, I mean, given what they said, just from the facts that were presented, it seemed like this is the utopia now, and all is hunky-dory and hooray, and now we can live, our lives as we want to. But that also reminds me of one of the best quotes I saw in Goodreads in one of the reviews. It's from a person of color. It's like, even when the white people disappear, the book is still about white people. And it's like, that's true. That's absolutely true. So, I mean, yes, I get that. Yes, now you have the flower of black in the black culture and such, but it just seems a little too good to be true to me.
Well, I guess, and again, perhaps it's me being like just too idealistic again, but I wasn't sure if the ending was saying that him fixing the machine meant he got the remaining white people, or that he was able to fix it in a way so that like everyone could finally live in harmony and in peace.
No, I thought his it was finding it so that it would find a way to power itself, which they did from the Mardi Gras celebration. And
Okay.
once they did that, game on. We can turn it on, and you know, they knew what would happen because they
So it
already.
was basically just a utopian ending.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I thought.
Okay.
Now, it could be that race relationships here in America might be different from other places. So whether that would apply, I have no idea. But I know, just from the books I've read that there's not quite that as you know, what's the word I want here? Stigmatizing of people of color, not in the same way as it is in America. So would it apply? I don't know. And then what are the rules of engagement? Well, what about Asian people? What about because there's more than just black and white. What happens with
Right.
them?
Right.
And I thought that was funny with her aunt, who was white, but apparently she had some black blood or black connection somewhere in her bloodline. Oh, you're okay. I was like, well, so what's like the criteria here for?
So that was one of the things that was talked about in there, is that whether or not it was a pigmentation difference, or if
Mhm,
it was an idea, if you how you thought actually is what caused you to actually be a part of that process. But
mhm,
But
considering
then,
she thought
yeah,
that
Sydney.
they had
Hmm.
kind of brainwashed her in a way that kind of pushed away from that idea. But my interpretation of the ending was very interesting because of how it was written in such a way, almost as like it was describing how they dealt, how the white people actually got up and left. So my thought was that when the king had calibrated his machine and used it,
mhm.
he was aiming for black consciousness to find the dream of utopia, whatever, that he missed and got, and the white people walked off. And then when Charlie fixed the machine, because he fixes things to what the king wanted to do, and then they actually got them and everybody else. Just so it was my interpretation was that he actually triggered everybody to do the exact same thing, and because we're all actually connected to the same consciousness.
Mhm.
But all again, that everyone walked into the ocean.
Everyone.
But how is that? Like that doesn't. How does that help
It doesn't.
anyone
It
thrive?
doesn't.
That's
It's not a thriving thing. It was just maybe that was just how
like
the
an ascension. Like
Yeah, but that was one of the things. That was one of the considerations when they were going to turn it on. It's like, well, you can't calibrate it, right? And they said, yeah, we're just going to turn it on anyway.
right. And so it would be too powerful. We don't know what it's going to do, but we did it anyway.
Yeah, we have an idea, but
Is that what happened to the Mayans? Never mind. Um, Apparently they were playing with sound for years. Like sound, I'm very
Mhm.
curious about this now because he brought into
Yeah.
the idea that they have been messing with it, like brain waves and frequencies,
Mhm.
because it does change things. That's the reason why we have the meditation mantras that we have and the certain sounds that they use, because it
Right.
changes, it affects your brain waves. So I'm very curious about that now.
But yeah, I think the author also makes the point that, at least in within the confines of his novel, he's talking about the black consciousness and the black racial memory, which is the sky full of elephants. There could be others, but he's talking specifically about this one.
Right.
And turning on the machine apparently gives him access to that. It
Okay.
makes him
I hope
home.
it was more utopian than it was
Mhm.
the connection thing then.
Yeah, and it's interesting because also to me it's like, okay, you survive this thing, and um, your form of government now is a monarchy, which will work when the monarch's a good monarch, but well, if you get a
Right.
bad one, oh no.
Oh no, indeed.
And enough said about that.
um, I thought it was interesting that they were talking about like music and dance almost as like a form of meditation in the
Hmm.
sense where it was more so not just for the joy of
Hmm.
of the music or the dancing, but to be able to release emotion.
Yeah, the cathartic effect.
Right. And, stereotypically, we always talk about, not we always talk about, but like people talk about like just Black people having just this innate sense of rhythm and white people not having like this innate sense of rhythm.
So you say that's lack of empathy?
I think, no, I'm saying that, like, I mean, is it
Connection
just
to the
something?
world?
Yeah, is it just a
Yeah.
form of connection with the self or with the higher consciousness, or practice just doing it more? Like, if Black people are dancing and singing to express joy and release emotion, and white people aren't ever doing that,
No,
or not
no,
doing
you
it at
dance.
the
I don't
same
want it,
rate,
no.
they have no
You want me to
rhythm,
look
and
weird?
like they're
No.
full of hatred because they don't know
No.
how to release their emotions. I don't know.
I don't know. I think the way I see it is, looking at it musically, white culture predominantly, considers about like melody. And well, you have monochromatic. Well, what is the word? Not polytonal. Uh, Basically, when they have like the monks, and you have one note, and then everybody sings that yay. The polyphony. That's the word I wanted. And then with the people of color and Black culture especially, in terms of this novel, you have polyrhythms. Like we have one rhythm, now we have more, all this stuff going on, and you put those together, and it's like, yeah, it's a very satisfying experience. But we're coming at the same idea from two different angles in that regard, I think.
Is that what you thought of Sinners?
I mean, I just think. Did you see that movie, Tom? Did you
Which-
see Sinners?
Sinners?
Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet.
Okay, we can't say
I
anything.
really want to.
Yeah,
It's
you should.
good.
I heard it was really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of mention of music and the power of music.
I saw, not to get into it, but I saw, which I'm dying to figure. One of the reasons I want to watch the movie is because I understand there's a lot of Irish music in it, and it's like, all right, let's see how that turns out. So,
Let me see what else is in here.
but while you're looking up, I mean, one of the thoughts I had is, I mean, they're clearly still within the time frame where, yes, you can still sing "Ding Dong, Witch is Dead," but how long are you going to do that? Like, is it a daily occurrence? Is it, at some point, when do you move on with your life?
It seemed like at the beginning of the book that it was kind of divided in the sense where, some people were happy about the event, but some people like were just
jarring.
It was, yeah. They were like, just didn't know how to live in the new society.
Because they're used to the old one, like Sydney was. I just thought it was funny. Yeah, we're going to keep the McDonald's open for the white people in that community because it was the only one left. Because that apparently upheld their notion of order.
So, do you think that after the machine was fine-tuned, those people who were having trouble with the event after the machine
Think
was
they found some
walking,
peace?
Yeah.
I don't think it was ever fine-tuned. That was one of the discussions they had. So we can't tune this. We turn on the power.
Everybody that was left found peace.
Yeah.
We'll just say we'll say that everybody that was left found peace.
Like Charlie did something.
What?
I said Charlie did something.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Yeah, but it was more along the lines of, okay, we can cover America now, but now we can cover the world.
Oh, so it was
sort of a thing. It was more of a range thing rather than a quality thing. That was my understanding.
Okay.
That's why we're looking for more power, because we need to power that signal to go all over the world. Excuse me.
Okay. What was the question I had just pulled up?
And while you're doing that, going back to what I said about monarchy, I think the author did that because to show that, yes, black people were royalty, you know, in Africa and such, and that carries over. Yes, they can be that too. In other words, not just what our perception is here of what they can be.
So this says, consider the role of the Kingdom of Alabama in the story. What does this setting symbolize, and how does it affect the characters' understanding of their world and themselves? I mean, I think both Sydney and Charlie were having a hard time processing the stuff that was going down in Mobile, Alabama.
Well, when you first hear the idea of a king, or when territories are broken down, and usually I don't know, even the way what was Zoo's dad's name, the pilot.
I don't remember.
Even he was like, "Get a gun! It's gonna be crazy down there." So
Yeah.
it's lawless. So and the king was like, "No, we're fine. We're just
Mhm.
hanging out and we're just a community." You know, so
Mm-hmm.
they were all given the bad impressions from the.
But I know that like when she first got there and she was introduced to the king and queen, she was just like, "You can't do that." She's like, "You can't do that. You can't just pronounce yourself king and queen. Like, you don't have any right to do that. You can't just show up at some place and do this thing." And I was like, "Girl, do you
No,
even know what you're saying? Like, do you
Apparently, you can.
gotta have the respect behind it, but
have white people not just been showing up places and just claiming them and
right.
like and deciding they're gonna rule it now? Like,
But
Hold
but
up.
that's okay."
yeah, I think Alabama was a good choice because especially for maybe especially for a white leader, in the sense that you think of Alabama, you think of all the racial tension and violence and such that's gone on there. It's like, oh no, but it shows how different the world is now. I think when they get down there, it's actually pretty good. It's nothing like we thought it would be.
I don't understand why some people struggle so much with the idea of community. Like, I don't know if it's like just. How do you feel about it? I
What do you
mean,
mean?
because I just feel like for me, culturally, community, family, helping others is just like a really important thing.
Helping others was never actually instilled until later on in life for me. Like we were actually, I grew up broke as well,
Right, but
and just on the other side of I actually grew up where there was literal segregation. Like there was a wall behind us that segregated one neighborhood from the other, and it was bad. But I mean, like, um, it didn't matter. I was still there. Everybody in that whole neighborhood, doesn't matter which side of that wall you were on, you were broke. So, but it was I don't know. The only thing I grew up knowing is that I've watched other people have really big families, and they all hung out and did things, and my family did nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
We had small families. We got together on what, Christmas, maybe Easter sometimes, but it wasn't no big get together. Everybody hated each other. Like it wasn't always fun. So and then I go and see uh, different cultures, different families all actually have that familial togetherness and growth. So I don't know. I didn't have a lot of that. I had some, but not a lot. So I don't know. My thought on, what was it? Giving back to others. I didn't have the ability to do so until, I guess, after meeting you, really.
Yeah, but there's also the notion that you should do that, which I think
Right.
comes before that, which is different. No, it's recognizing the fact and then being able to do it are two different things. That's all.
Well, I also have agree and notice that it's less you have, the more you share.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yeah,
been
there's something in the
driving that razor blade for a while, actually.
yeah. Well, that goes back to the biblical story about I think it was the Pharisee or something. He gives like this ostentatious amount of money, and then there's the old woman that brings in the penny, and said which is worth more. It's the old woman's because that's all she has. Whereas he is
Right.
giving of his wealth, she's giving of her need. Desiree's processing that.
I am.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
sure.
processing. I just like. I mean, I feel like, the way they were vibing and living in mobile, it's just like, yeah, like
Not.
like we should do that. Like that's
We're
how it
not.
should
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, charging a car and then making sure it has something left for the next person behind you. I mean, really?
Yeah. Yes, but do they put the grocery carts back?
uh,
That's the question. I would want to ask. My guess is the answer is yes. But,
well, when you actually get to where you actually want to take care of each other, I would hope so. Yes.
mm-hmm.
okay. Mm-mm-mm.
What?
Yeah, what are you laughing about?
Grocery carts.
Yeah.
Because nobody puts them.
Okay. So see, now we know.
I had to drive around 3 in the Publix parking.
No, that's the place you live in. It is a non-value action, but it does show what kind of person.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is.
really, it's true. I like that term too, a non-value action. But
Mhm.
yeah, it shows a lot of worth.
Of where people are at. But
I walk mine all the way back and feel bad about someone else's that I left behind.
and yeah, they come back like 5 or 10 of them.
So the cataclysmic event that leads to the post-racial America is a bold narrative choice. What are your thoughts on how this event shapes the society depicted in the novel? Does it offer a critique, hope, or a warning about our current societal structures?
Is there a D? All of the above?
I mean, I don't perceive the narrative choice as hope, but
Mhm.
I also understand that this is not
Oh,
aimed at me.
yes.
I think it is a critique. Could it also be a warning? Yeah, it could be. I hope it's not. I hope we find like other answers. I don't know. I'm never going to come to that conclusion. I'm never going to come to the conclusion that in order for a certain group of people to be happy, that we have to eliminate another group of people. Like,
right. No, I think we're waiting for the point that all white men fear right now is that we're just gonna mingle enough that we're all gonna be the same color. Like, you can't separate people if they're all the same color.
well, yeah, but like one of the biggest, well, not one of the biggest things, but the fact that it kept saying in the book, like, white is not a race, it's an idea.
So
right?
what?
So they were saying that it was the idea. It was the idea that was targeted, the idea of superiority, the idea that those people thought they were better for whatever reason. And I understand that, because like how often, my goodness, how often have I seen white people talk about how people of color shouldn't have certain things, like those, whatever, like whether it's welfare or SNAP or like access to education, just, and then meanwhile that same person will be on welfare, and that's totally okay
Right, yeah.
because they're somehow better and their circumstances are somehow different and they're not manipulating the system, and that, you know what I'm saying, like, if anything, if you are accessing those programs and they're helping you, then you should understand why someone else could benefit from it. Like,
Honestly, it's just the divisive culture. It's just we've learned to separate things, and we shouldn't.
Well, in the case of having and not having, the Tulsa massacre is the best example of that. Well, black people shouldn't have that, and we're going to destroy it now.
Dude, that whole idea of, it seems like such a psychotic white person idea. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to have it, so I'll destroy it so nobody can have it.
Right.
not just that, or the idea that like you suffered through something, so other people have to suffer through it too. Anyway, I guess to I think I did answer the question. Because I was like, yes, it's a critique. Yes, it could potentially be a warning. I don't think it was hopeful. So, did you want to add to that, either of you?
Just about the book in general, though, it seemed like some of the characters, like the pilot and his son, it's like, oh, we don't need him anymore. Well, they just disappeared until the end. So, I don't know. I wish if they were including them, we would have found that more about them. Like, I think even any other minor characters that were in there, but I don't think there are any other than those two.
Let's see what the last question was. I think we kind of talked about this already, because it's talking about the ending and it's saying, reflecting on the novel's ending, discuss the prospects of healing and self-actualization for Charlie and Sydney and the society they inhabit. What vision of the future does the novel propose for its characters and for America? So I think we kind of already covered that. I don't know if you want to add anything else to it.
Mm-mm. Tom, are you hearing her well enough?
Yes.
Okay. Just curious.
You have headphones on. I know that you think I talk really low all the time.
Well, there's also a noise that's coming from
There's like a humming.
the system.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to.
I would have said something if I didn't hear it.
Okay. Well, do we have anything else to add? I mean, I'm curious if this author has written anything else.
I'm sure we can find that answer very fast.
Yeah.
Well,
let's.
I go and we start the rating systems.
Unless you have something else to add before we get to final thoughts.
Nope. I'm gonna give it 5 stars. I like some of the ideas through it, and it's I like the thought behind some of it, and it's a good read.
Okay, so I don't know if this is not available yet.
But so he has 2 or 3 other things that he's done. They're going to Goodreads.
So there's listen. I create me.
Yeah.
Conversations with women.
Yep, and Violet in some places.
Yeah. So it says Conversations with Women is a collection of real conversations from real women pieced into a coming-of-age narrative, part poetry, part memoir. A boy becomes a man, exploring themes of youth, sex, identity, and patriarchy through the wisdom of women.
Wow.
And then Violent in Some Places is the life of a man enveloped in the raw, nurturing magic of matriarchs. If ever there was a guide toward masculine vulnerability, power through listening, a Rosetta Stone for empathy, it is here in the silky poetic prose beautifully woven throughout its empowering collection from Cebo Campbell. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued because, you know, John and I have conversations all the time about how it's time for women to take over. It's time for just nurturing, less violence, less aggression, less I just feel like it's time for women to pick up the pieces. And
I don't know the quote I don't know verbatim, but I just saw the Eric Andre. I don't know how you can say something so truthfully. It's so controversial, but yeah. So honest, so controversial. I don't know, but yeah, I agree. It's
one of the things we haven't
stop sword fighting.
One of the things we haven't touched on yet is why Cindy's aunt invited her down to Alabama in the first place. When she gets there, it's a death cult, and they want me to sacrifice myself. It's like I thought that was a great twist.
Man, I know this is definitely a book that's going to stay with me for a while, and it's also something I would want to reread, maybe annotate so I'm paying more attention, double checking to see if there's time jumps or
well, now I'm gonna have to go back and
any
reread
details that I missed. I was definitely listening to the audiobook, but I was trying to pick up the book and read at the same time as often as possible.
Yeah, I was surprised they had three narrators for the audiobook. And granted, Vivian's author narrator didn't get that much work, which I would have preferred to see more from their perspective. But oh well.
Yep, this Publishers Weekly said, this stunning allegory will spark much discussion. I did not look at any of the Goodreads reviews, and I'm kind of glad I didn't prior to the discussion. I guess I'll go do that afterwards. Tom, were you looking at them when you were
clearly yes, because I cited a few.
Yeah, but I assume you looked at them after you finished the book.
It's after I finished the book.
Yeah.
Because usually what I do is before I rate a book, I want to see how people talking about it at a particular rating and say, what do I feel like? And then I'll compare it to that, and whatever the consensus is, that gives you an idea of where to place my rating.
What was it divided?
Of course, it was divided.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I haven't.
You can have you probably have an idea of how.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh God.
I'm sure.
Right into.
So, well, like I said, the best comment I read was, even though white people aren't there, the book's still about white people. So, which I think is true. So.
All right. Well, John gave it 5 stars. I think I also give it 5 stars. And again, it's something I will be talking about with other people. It's a book that I'll be recommending, and probably I think we're both gonna reread it at some point, right?
One of the things that you'll notice when you go to read the Goodreads review, someone will point out some plot holes in the book. So, like I said, I had finished the book by then. So, but all right. For me, I think I give it a 3.5, rounds to 4. So, because like I said, the premise was very interesting, but past that, it was like, hooray, we don't have white people anymore. It essentially was the aftermath of that. And I wish that was a bit developed a bit more, but there's more complex or nuance to it. So.
Did you watch the video I sent you? You didn't ever finish it? You said you watched half of it?
I think I watched, I some, not all.
Okay.
I don't know if it's half or most. I can't answer that, but I've watched.
I went
some.
looking for like interview videos with the author. And so I guess I'll probably go ahead and share that in the
Oh yeah, the
Goodreads
one
group
with in the bookstore.
afterwards. You keep
Yeah,
saying in the bookstore. I
there's
don't know. I
books
wasn't
behind them.
paying attention to the settings,
all
so
right.
like I just know what he was talking about, and he was just talking about how um, we've just been programmed to um, not be in tune with our connection to each other, with our connection to the earth, with our connection to
Oh
like
yeah.
to so many different things. So um, I don't know if it was watching that video or my other interests that make it feel like that was fleshed out. You know, like if it feels solid to me, I guess, the
Right.
concepts and the things that were being talked about. Because I think they're just ideas that resonate with me. Um, you know, going back to probably like when I first read the Celestine Prophecy, like
Right. Okay.
um, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the plot holes were, so I guess I'll find out when I start reading the Goodreads reviews.
Yes. Yes.
But for the most part, I think. Um,
I would read more by the author.
yeah, same.
But, yeah, I don't know. I was thinking I had an idea that I followed, but it just went right in my head. So, please continue.
All right, so for June, because this was our May book. For June, we're going to be reading Nimona.
Nimona.
I know that one.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about it, Tom?
Is
I
this
have it and I own it, but like I have no idea what it's
Is
about.
this the graphic?
It is.
It is.
It's a very big graphic.
It's a graphic
It's
novel.
a thick graphic. That's a nice.
Even so, the lettering, for whatever reason, is really tiny.
I've got work to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it first because you've been slacking lately.
Nuh-uh.
I have not.
Yeah, you do read this first. Yeah, if you're gonna read with your eyes, you will definitely be a lot faster than I.
There's no, as far as
There's
I
no
know,
audiobook as far as
audiobooks.
yeah.
You have to read it
So
with
you
your
can't.
eyes too.
That's what I'm saying. I know, but I'm saying you go first because I know I have to.
Okay. All right.
But
Anyway, Tom.
there's also the movie on Netflix.
Okay, and so
Done.
you want us to read it and watch the movie?
Did you see the movie already, John?
No, I haven't.
No.
Because that sure looked that way.
No,
Confirming
that's
that
gonna
that's
be my
what
answer
you
to
wanted us to do.
reading it.
I will say that the movie is definitely based on the book, but it is not the book.
Oh yeah, there's probably a lot more details in the book, of course.
Yeah, but basically it's about definitions. You know, what makes a villain a villain.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Basically, what happens is Ballister Blackheart is the villain in the story.
I mean,
And they have his origin story as the first part. And into his life comes Nimona, a creature who can do very powerful things. I don't want to give away what she can do because you'll discover that in the course of the novel. And it's basically him trying to rein her in for a lot of the novel. So, I guess I don't want to give anything away because, you know, there's one apparently very basic thing about the book that I missed, but they like full on like almost like from the beginning show you in the movie. And I say, oh, I didn't know that. So that's I'm very hesitant about, saying thing. But it's he is opposed.
Read the book first.
Hmm?
So read the book first.
Absolutely, read the book first. Yes.
Okay.
And then I mean, put it this way: when I read the book, and then I eventually saw the movie, and I gave the movie 4.5 stars. But then I reread the book and then immediately watched the thing, and then it's like, well, there are certain things I don't like about the movie now, because the book is more, how should I put this, ambiguous, which is a good thing. Whereas and I get movies like for mass consumption, you got to put it out there.
Choices were made.
Yeah,
and you don't like
choices were absolutely made. Yes. So, but no, I love the book. I would say that. then, like I said, it is a Pride Month pick, which is giving something away there. But yes, but no, it's basically what your definition of self is and how people see you, and what is it like to be judged by the worst thing you've ever done in your life, all all the time, forever. So yeah, I really liked it.
All right, so we will be talking about this closer to the end of June,
In depth, apparently.
and yeah, and I guess so. This is one of the few times that we'll be reading it and then watching the adaptation and probably talking about both. So,
If we don't, that's fine. But like I said, I think it's worth. The movie's good in its own right, but it's not quite the book.
mhm.
But I understand that Noel Stevenson did have a hand in the movie, so it's not like they just threw the book out. So, in fact, there's some scenes that say, "Oh, I know where that's from." So
All right. So if you have made it this far, thanks for joining us. And one more time, if you ever want to participate in the discussion on camera with us, you can do that by becoming a book club VIP member at patreon.com/Libri Labra. And we will see you guys at the end of the month. So
Bye, guys.
bye.
bye.
Bye.